So first up today, we've got Margaret, and she's doing a talk on delivering document for all three use cases. She's based in San Francisco, so it's possible she's come the furthest for today. I would say, from my internet stalking, that she is addicted to education. Did you know she has worked as a barista? So I'm sure she's judging our coffee even now, which Melbourne is very proud of it. She knows of or speaks Mandarin Chinese and Spanish and Cantonese and sign languages. In her free time, she has taken up hula hooping for fun, as you do. Oh, language, it's Dutch. She's also studied fitness training principles, content curation. However, she strikes me as someone who's not just a sponge. She's not into researching and education for its own sake. I would describe Margaret as a smelter. She's taking lots of ingredients from different places and she's turning into something shinier and better for the people that she's producing content for. So without further ado, Margaret.
Hello, good afternoon everyone, and thank you, Nicola, for that beautiful introduction. Today I will be speaking to you about delivering documents for all three use cases. First, a little bit about where I'm coming from. I work for a company called Degreed. We're an educational technology company for tracking all the things you learn, both formal and informal, and allowing you to kind of collate it to show which skills you've developed if you've developed skills outside of formal educational settings. And so as a company focused on allowing you to use all of your learning, I get a little bit more freedom than many technical writers have to take into account latest educational psychology stuff and do all kinds of fun experiments. And so today we're going to be talking a little bit about something I've noticed as I've been going through a few of those experiments. First, I'm going to give an overview of each of the three general use cases I think it breaks down into. These are not just the use cases in the sense of this document is for an admin, this document is for an end user, this document is for a developer. But these are why the user has arrived at this part of your documentation right now. I'm also going to go a little bit into some anti-patterns to watch out for. Anti-patterns, in case anyone is not familiar with the concept, are pretty much what they sound like. It is a pattern of something that you do not want to do. These are patterns to avoid. And finally, I'm going to go a little bit into how to help each user. These are actionable tips that you can use for improving your documentation or really any user-facing written materials. Most of my examples here are from documentation itself, written help topics or things like that that you would encounter, but also a lot of the same principles apply to your UI strings and especially to your error message type strings. I'll go a little bit more into that later. For each of the use cases, I've created a little icon to make it a little bit easier to follow because they'll be coming back a lot throughout. So first, the use case is learning a new product. Users who are learning your product for the first time are more willing to listen to some of the background. They want a general overview of the land, and they're curious about what they can do. These users will be willing to tolerate a little bit more in terms of extra words, but also they want some guidance so they know where to go next after they make it through this document. Second, learning a new feature. These are the explorers. They may already know your product, or they may just want to learn one part of it right now and come back and get a broader layout later. These users are willing to tolerate a little bit of excess information, but they don't want you to be chatty. And finally, troubleshooting. These are the users who don't actually want to be in your documentation. This is kind of worst case scenario. By the time they get here, they are not thrilled. And so you want to help them get out as soon as possible. Their real use case is not using it anymore. Now, these are some of the anti-patterns. This is a piece of documentation that I found in the wild between when this talk was accepted and when I finished my slides. Unfortunately, I have a piece of software that my company rolled out to everyone to use that was taking over my laptop for 2.5 hours every morning. And so we reached out to support. I was working with an IT guy on this. Support said that I needed to install a second piece of software to get the logs for the first piece of software. And when I asked where to get the second piece of software, I was given this. So this first thing claims to be a download link. It is actually a broken link. The second link says that it goes to a help document. It actually goes to the version control record for this same page. The third thing actually does give you information on this in a 10-minute video. As I'm sure you can imagine, I was not super pleased. I was in fact so displeased that that is part of how this became my example. The other examples are from my own writing, just repurposed a little bit. But there were some pros where this could have been, had it been more thoroughly tested for successful links, a good piece of documentation in another situation. One of the key things that I want you to take away here is that any documentation can be bad documentation if you give it to someone at the wrong time. It had a cute video. Admittedly, it was good. If I wasn't already angry when I got to this page, I would have loved that video. It had these little things hopping around and made it very clear where I needed to click next. Also, it had links to other topics with more information on related issues. If the links had worked, that would have been very useful to me. Also, it introduced and then expanded an acronym for the feature. And so here you can see at the top those short gray bars, blurred to protect the innocent, are then expanded in the longer gray bar below. So there were some things that they were doing right here. Cons, I didn't want it. I was stuck on this page with no way to escape, no way to regain control of my computer, and 10 more minutes of mandatory video that I had to watch before I could continue with my day, after losing 2.5 hours to the malfunctioning software to begin with, and an additional 30 minutes with their tech support person who sent me to this document. I got here extremely frustrated already, and then you frustrated me even more, because not only did the product not work, the documentation didn't work either. Here we have an About Your Profile example. We're going to look at this from the perspective of someone who is looking to learn about a new feature. This says, your degreed user profile allows you to get credit from others for everything you learn throughout your life. You can start by adding your previous learning accomplishments and track new ones as you go. Keep adding new items you learn from as you continue learning. You can also connect the other sites you use to learn. Pros, it's kind of friendly, conversational. I'm not feeling like you're angry at me as I read this. It's basic enough for a beginning user to understand. And it situates you within the general tasks that you might find soon, so you kind of have an idea of what's coming up next. But, as we look at this again, I'm coming in looking to learn about this specific feature. And this isn't quite giving me what I need there. This is sort of a general overview situating me within the profile product, basically. It doesn't address a specific task. It moves slowly and gives beginner-level information. And it's unclear how far ahead I can skip before I can get to the things that I really want, the tasks that I can do with the profile portion of this product. I was a receptive user here. I came in eager or at least satisfied with the product, looking to deepen or broaden my interaction with your product, but then you took that interest and you dragged me along until I don't care anymore. I liked you and you kind of betrayed me here. Finally, we've got someone who's looking to explore a whole new product. They get to use the Bookmarklet Extension. Click your name in the upper right-hand corner of the screen, select Settings, then select the Degreed Button tab. Click the tab for your browser and follow the instructions. The first time you use it, you have to log in. Well, it's a brief procedure. You can skim it, and the instructions allow you to follow along from any browser you're using. But I came here to explore, and at the end of this, I still don't feel like I've really explored anything. It just dives in with no context, as if I came here looking to use the Bookmarklet or extension, and I still don't know what a bookmarklet or an extension is, or why I would want it. I'm probably dedicated enough to follow through the instructions, because I did come here to learn a new product, but I might feel like something is missing, or I've been a little bit neglected, because I really have to stumble through your list of instructions to figure out why things work, or why I would care. So, some tips for helping users actually learn your product. If someone comes in and they're curious, start off by introducing the why. Let them know why they would want to use each part of your product, or why they would want to use your product overall. At least hint at the order you're going to go in. This person is coming here to explore the product and intending to get a broad overview, but that doesn't necessarily mean they're not going to change their mind about that partway through. And so you do want to let them skip ahead, especially if what it turns out they need is just the overview topic, and then they don't need that part of the product, so they want to skip ahead to the next chunk. Contextualize the upcoming tasks. Don't just say, we're going to talk about how to add items to your profile, save items for later, and recommend items. Say something more like, we're going to talk about how to record your learning, share items with colleagues, and keep items you might want to come back to at a later date. Be efficient here. Don't include too much information, but don't be terse. These users are looking to explore, they're kind of curious, they're willing to spend a little bit more time actually reading rather than just skimming through. And consider the emotional impact of what you say. This user is curious. They're here because they're excited and they want to learn something new, or because they've gotten thrust into something and they're trying to make the best of it. Help them. Oops. To help a user learn a specific feature, first, chunk your documentation. If they can come in at the chunk that refers to that feature and leave as soon as that chunk has clearly ended, then they'll be able to learn the feature more effectively and they won't associate that risk of getting trapped. Contextualize this feature within the product at large. You don't want someone to learn the feature in isolation and have no idea what the rest of it does and click something accidentally and get stuck forever. But don't spend too much time off topic. This person did come in with a purpose. Keep it short, but also be friendly. This person maybe doesn't want just do A, then do B, then do C. They want to know a little bit about how the parts of this feature fit together for them. Also, go in order. If you say that you're going to tell me about saving and then recommending, you have to do that, because otherwise it's going to be very hard for me to find things. I'll get lost, I'll be frustrated, and then I become your troubleshooting user. Keep your promises. Going in order is one of these, but anything you say you're going to cover, cover it. If you have any topics where you make promises, like later we're going to address this, your overview topics, make sure you revisit those regularly so that you can be sure that those promises are still being kept later on. If you pull out a feature and you take out the actual documentation of it, but you still have a reference to it in an overview earlier, then the user is extra lost. Here, some things we could have done. Here what we've done is give a general overview, but instead of generally referring to these, we mentioned that you can start by adding your previous learning accomplishments and tracking new ones, and we might want to add some more information about why you're doing this. If a user is trying to troubleshoot and move on, include the minimum viable explanation. This user does not want any extra words. They want the least bit of information you can give them that allows them to get on with the rest of their day. This user's not here because they want to explore your product or because they even care. They're here because you're stopping them from doing something else that they need to get done. If somebody who's skimming this topic instead of reading it will hit a problem that they might not have noticed, make sure you warn them and make that very clear. Some people use the little call-out warning symbols to do this. It's kind of ugly in my opinion, but if that's what it takes for this user to not get extra stuck and doubly frustrated, then that might be what you need to do. Test these topics twice as much as usual. Hopefully you're testing all of your links, but these links are really going to fry your relationship with your user. Broken links in the troubleshooting type of topics are the kinds of things that will prevent a user from ever coming back to your documentation, whereas elsewhere you might get a bug report. Again, consider the emotional impact of this document. When you come here, you don't want all of this. You just want a brief procedure so that you can get back into your thing. Or ideally, this technical writer could have filed a bug report so that I don't need to download a second piece of software to make the first one not take over my machine. I have a question slide, but we're not actually doing questions at the end. So thank you, everyone. I have a Twitter handle here, and I will gladly take questions there later, but